the video to friends, Mary always posts this on YouTube. And so please share these videos on social media, and what is it? Like, comment, and share, and subscribe to the YouTube videos so that we can get more people viewing the videos after the fact. And because anyone can forget that we're going to have this, on this day, and you can always go back to the YouTube video and watch it or refer it to your colleagues or even your students.
Well, they're actually on the folkharp.com website. If you look
Oh,
at the top, it says teachers. And under that, it's Harp Teachers Gathering. And all of the ones that we've ever done are on there, except for the one I forgot to record. And that was Anna Dunwoody. I forgot to record her.
oh no.
I know.
Claudia, I see you there. Oh, and everybody,
Oh,
Oh,
he does not like harp music. And so if I'm playing in here, he is nowhere near. He mostly comes in when I'm not here and like leaves cat fur on the black chairs.
well, okay. I think we're going to go ahead and start here. It's 3:03. Welcome, everybody. I'll try to admit people as they come in. Um, we're very lucky and very happy to have Suzanne Guldimann. Did I say that right? Guldimann?
Guldimann.
Oh, okay, Guldimann. Mary Muckle sent me an email requesting Suzanne Guldimann, and I did not have her contact information, so I emailed Sylvia. And Sylvia Woods immediately gave me her contact information. And then I emailed Suzanne and she immediately accepted. And I'm so happy about that. And I think that that is my little introduction. And Therese, would you like to take it from there?
Sure, I will. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. And we've been having a lot of fun doing these seminars, teacher seminars, every month. And Suzanne Guldimann is going to have a slideshow for us. She's going to talk about all sorts of things that I think we're really going to enjoy. I just thought it was interesting. She published her first collection of harp music in 1998, and she's fixing to come out with her 10th one, I believe. And of course, I from the South, so I say fixing to come out or publish the next one. And but these books are specifically arranged for small harps with less than 3 octaves. But of course, you can play them on a bigger harp, which I do. I play them on small harp and bigger harp. And I want to say that these books have sometimes really saved me because I've been asked to play, some Christmas event, and I can pull one of those books out and play them on a smaller harp and not have to worry about rearranging on the fly. And I really, really like that. Um, and she's also an author, which I did not know, and she's going to tell us where we can order her fiction books, and that's going to be really, really nice. Um, and I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm going to turn it over to Suzanne. Welcome.
Thank you. Let's see, how do I do this? There we go. Hello, everyone. I'm honored to be here, and I'm going to start. 3 of my books are about Christmas music. Green Grows the Holly was the first one. I arranged this music for lap harp because that's the instrument that drew me to the harp. And when I started, there just was not very much music available for smaller harps. I've stuck with that for the same reason that there are a lot of us who like to have smaller harps and would like to have some music for it. Cold December Winds is my European early and traditional carols. And a few years later, I did Amid the Winter Snow, which is Victorian Christmas carols. And today I'd like to talk a little bit about the history of Christmas carols, where it intersects with the history of harping. And then we'll talk a little bit about small harps and some of their strengths and quirks and how we as teachers can help our students to get the most out of them and enjoy playing them. So we are going to go to a slideshow right now, and Let's see. We want the desktop. We're going to share it, and we're going here. And voila. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, break the harp and join the chorus. Christmas carols are a remarkable survival. This is an almost unbroken folk tradition that extends all the way back to the 13th century in Europe. There were earlier songs and hymns, some of which are still performed. One of the earliest pieces that we know of that could be considered a Christmas carol is the Angels Hymn, written in Rome in the year 129 AD. The earliest version of the carol O Come, Emmanuel goes all the way back to the 8th century. This is early version of that, and you can see how the O's here, this is an antiphon. We have the text, we have early music. It didn't come together in its current form until the 19th century, but it has its roots all the way back in the 9th. Christmas carols, as we know today, didn't really get their start until the 13th century when songs for the season started to be written in the vernacular, and that's largely thanks to St. Francis of Assisi. He encouraged the singing of Christmas songs as part of his nativity plays, beginning in the early 1200s, and these canticles told the story of the birth of Jesus in the language of the people, not the Latin of the church. Carols made their way to England in the late 13th century, where they became part of the folk music tradition or the folk play tradition. These early carols were sung and danced. They weren't specifically about Christmas. They were performed for all times of the year and all kinds of festivities. They came together with other traditions, the earlier pre-Christian traditions of wassailing and mumming. This group are not mutants, they are mummers wearing masks. Morris dancing was also part of this early tradition. So these are secular activities. The folk plays were often about Robin Hood and Maid Marian and St. George and his dragon. They were popular entertainment. Not all carols were Christmas carols, and this is a medieval group dancing a carol in a circle as a circle dance, which was a major part of it before they morphed into being strictly songs. Oops. Aha. This is the Agincourt Carol from 1415, celebrating the victory of King Henry V, the wee band of brothers fellow from the Shakespeare play. It's a secular carol celebrating a special occasion. Geoffrey Chaucer mentions carols in The Knight's Tale of his Canterbury Tales. Judging from the contents of The Knight's Tale, it's safe to assume that this was a secular carol. He refers to carols and instruments and feasts and dancing. This manuscript may be the first time where Christmas and carol came together in the written word. It's a composition by the French composer Guillaume de Marchand, who lived from 1300 to 1377, and it's titled simply Christmas Carol Dance. By the 15th century, the carol had come to mean a song rather than a dance, and caroling combined with wassailing, which is what we see here with a contemporary troupe, involved going door to door and singing for one's neighbors. This is a much older tradition, but Christmas is full of old traditions that have come together and to form a new holiday that's still evolving. The word wassail means be well in Old English, and luck visiting in different forms is prevalent throughout Europe in different ways, in different places. But in England, it's very much tied with Christmas time. The first written reference to carols in Christmas carols in England appeared in the writings of Shropshire chaplain and poet John Audeley before 1426. He lists 25 carols of Christmas in his writings. He penned this one. It's the carol I Sing of a Maiden Matchless, and it's all filled with witty and clever acrostics and puns that are sadly rather lost on a modern audience. He also recorded 25 other carols that probably would have been performed by wassailers going door to door. By the end of the 15th century, the term carol in England was becoming synonymous for the music of Christmas. Of nearly 500 surviving English medieval carols, almost 250 have Christmas themes. England wasn't the only place that had a caroling tradition. Carols were popular throughout Europe. Many beautiful carols from this period were preserved in the Pae Cantione, a collection of late medieval Latin songs first published in 1582. Included in here in their original Latin forms are Good King Wenceslas and Good Christian Men Rejoice and Christ Was Born on Christmas Day. Once again, the Victorians got a hold of these and wrote English lyrics for them, but they were in wide circulation through Scandinavia and what is now Germany. Not sure why this does not want to move forward on me. Certainly making fun golf ball-like sounds. There we go. Many beautiful carols also come from the German tradition. This is Lo How a Rose is Blooming, first published in Köln in 1599. But also getting back to England, the Coventry Carol, which isn't specifically a Christmas carol, though we treat it as that now. It was part of the mystery play called The Pageant of the Shearmen and Tailors, and dates from 1591. Mystery plays like this one were tremendously popular, not just in England, but throughout Europe. You can still see one at Oberammergau in Germany. Unlike the secular folk plays, these drew their stories from Bible stories, and they were a big deal with special effects and musicians and actors and huge set pieces and all kinds of amazing things. Going to see one was the medieval equivalent of going, to a rock concert or a Broadway show. It was a major event, and just a tremendous spectacle. And the people who put these shows on were traveling groups of musicians and actors. They traveled to cities, towns, and villages. It's very likely that the musicians included harpers. Bards were a thing of the past by then. And the harp wouldn't become an aristocratic parlor instrument until the 18th century, but harpers were out on the roads, plying their trade, playing music, telling stories. Harps of every size and shape are prevalent in Western art from the early medieval period right up to the Renaissance. This gentleman, painted by Hans Holbein the Younger, who also painted Henry VIII and his wives, is playing a small harp. The Renaissance was not a great time to be a harper. Queen Elizabeth prosecuted and persecuted the Irish harpers. Things got immeasurably worse under Oliver Cromwell and his Puritan Roundheads. One of the first things that Cromwell did was outlaw not only harps and harpers. He ordered all the harps and organs in Ireland to be burned, but he also outlawed Christmas, which wasn't very nice of him. At least he outlawed Christmas celebrations and Christmas carols because he regarded them as pagan and wicked. If you, like I, grew up with C.S. Lewis's Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, you can see where the author got the idea of a kingdom where it was always winter and never Christmas. This is one of Cromwell's soldiers coming to punish a group of cavaliers who are enjoying some Christmas good cheer. Christmas was banned also in America, in the colonies, where the offender would be fined 5 shillings. All of this had a very chilling effect on the performance of Christmas music. Cromwell lost his head, quite literally, in 1658. And Charles II ascended the throne. This is the Reformation period. One of the first things he did on Coronation Day, which is what this portrait is of, is he ensured that Christmas festivities were no longer outlawed. Street musicians, including the last of the Irish harpers, were once again free to uh, ply their trade. That last generation included O'Carolan, but also harpers like Charlie Breen on the right. And you can see here too what a big difference in, this is a small wire strung harp. This is a much larger harp. It's fascinating to see the instruments that are portrayed, not so much in the medieval pictures where you're not sure if it's a real harp or not, but these are real people with real harps in period, and to me it's fascinating to see the variety of harps that were played. This elegant gentleman is playing the French Baroque harp, and in the years following the Commonwealth, the British aristocracy went mad for the exciting new French single action harp. This lovely lady looks very pleased to be playing one. Um, these harps are everywhere in the literature of the period. The Miss Mary Crawford in Jane Austen's Mansfield Park is upset that she can't get her harp transferred to her from London because it's harvest season and there isn't a cart available to bring it, which is an aggravation many of us could perhaps sympathize with. The Musgrove girls in Mansfield, or in in Persuasion, are mad about the harp and happy to play it for anyone who's willing to listen to it. Carols came back in this period too, and this is a broadsheet. They were inexpensive, printed on what we would consider as newsprint, and they offered words and music and were a sort of cheery thing. You could also get them for executions, which was less cheery perhaps, but Christmas broadsheets were extremely popular in the 18th and 19th centuries. This is an especially delightful one from the early 18th century. I love it because it has dancers dancing in a circle, a traditional carol. It also shows feasting going on, and a fiddler there is providing entertainment for the feasters. The 18th century celebration of Christmas was very much engaged in balls, dances, festivities, parties at home. Here's another fiddler. These were often itinerant musicians who were hired to come in and perform for the occasion. This image is Fezziwig's ball from the sequences about the ghost of Christmas past from Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. Dickens is often given the credit for inventing our modern vision of Christmas, but that really isn't a full picture of things, and it leaves out the very important researchers and amateur historians who went out and gathered folk traditions and carols in the countryside in England and in Europe and published them and popularized them and really saved the Christmas music tradition canon and put it in a way that made it very popular and accessible to a huge section of the population. Uh, Harpists and harpers were itinerant musicians in the 18th and 19th century. This is a wonderful illustration of Italian musicians. The gentleman in the top hat in front is playing a hurdy-gurdy. If you notice, the harpist is a woman, and that's significant. This is the German poet and polymath, Wolfgang Goethe. He writes in his journals about traveling through Italy in the last years of the 18th century, about meeting a harper and his daughter on the road, and the father asks if the poet will give the girl a ride in the coach. She's a little girl, 11 years old, and they have a nice conversation that Goethe records. This young lady has just performed for like the crowned heads of Europe, the elector of oh goodness, hang on, I've got to get his name because I can't remember what it was. Oh well, I'll have to take my word for it. I think he's Joseph Maximilian III. That's this gentleman. She's 11. She played the harp for this guy. The conversation is wide-ranging. She's walked all over Europe with her dad performing as she went. She's made enough money recently to buy a new hat for herself that she's very proud of. And they have a conversation about how the harp functions as a barometer, and it goes flat when it's wet and becomes sharp when it's dry out. Um, Goethe writes that she was extremely entertaining company, and that's the only like, conversation with an itinerant harpist or harper of any type, let alone a female one, that I've ever encountered. It's a fascinating look at a lifestyle that's completely, vanished now. But other itinerant musicians were out on the road. This is another troupe of Italian musicians with a harp. I suspect in the way that the Irish harp was often the Baroque harp with 2 feet that wasn't in style once the modern harp came into vogue. I think a lot of these harps were probably the single action harps that went out of style when the double action modern concert harp came in. Here's another group, and this group could be Christmas caroling. I don't know what the connection. This is a London musical troupe. The woman is once again playing the harp. Musicians like this would have taken advantage of the holiday season. If they were lucky, they might get a gig to play at a party, like the Fezziwig's Ball illustration that we saw. But they would certainly be caroling in the streets for pennies. And this is an illustration for Dickens' the Cricket on the Hearth. And once again, we have a harp here and dancing going on. Two of the people who helped probably every bit as much as Dickens did to popularize Christmas were a pair of song collectors called William Sandys and Davis Gilbert. These two Cornish gentlemen traveled all over England, going to tiny, small villages, talking to little old people, writing down songs, collecting traditions. They published 100 traditional carols in 1833. And the Victorians had a passion for everything that was antique and historic. They would come up with new lyrics, brush things up, change things around, but they did a lot to popularize this music that probably would have gone extinct at this point, and they threw their heart into it. This is, a Victorian group of carolers at Hampton Court Palace. They couldn't resist romanticizing and tinkering with things, though. They rewrote carols, they re-Gothicized cathedrals, they romanticized historic traditions like harping. I love this portrait. It's a salted paper print made by David Octavius Hill in the 1840s, and it depicts Patrick Byrie, one of the last of the traditional Irish harpers. But, he couldn't just take a picture of him in his street clothes. He had to dress him up the way a Victorian thought that a ancient Irish bard should dress, with a laurel wreath on his head. And it looks like he borrowed Mrs. Hill's good Italian shawl to use as a robe for him there. The Extra dressings aside, it's a really remarkable picture of one of the last of the living Harpers who, this man was born in 1797, and he learned from people who would have been born deeper into the 18th century. It's kind of remarkable that they lived long enough to be recorded in this way. There are a lot of early photos of other harpers and harpists. This is once again an Italian troupe with a young boy playing the harp. Nobody thought to dress him up in fancy dress or anything. These are just street musicians plying their trade. This is a Russian pair. Once again, the woman is playing the harp and the man is playing the fiddle. This is Russia in 1897. And this delightful photo is from a book of street life in America from the same time, the 1890s, showing two children playing harp and fiddle, which seems to have been the hot combination of the time. America was feeling the chill of the Puritan influence for a long time. Not a whole lot of traditional music comes out of the American experience, although there are some um, spirituals that have Christmas themes, and there's a number of shape note songs like this one, Star in the East. Shape note was very popular. It used the do, re, mi scale using shapes for the notes, and you didn't have to read music to be able to play it. It was performed a cappella, usually with 4 parts, and important popular entertainment for people during the 19th century. America really hit its stride with Christmas music in the 20th century with the advent of the motion picture.
I think is everybody frozen or is it just Suzanne that is frozen?
I'm unfrozen now.
I think it might just be Suzanne.
Hmm.
Hmm. Hmm.
Let me see if I can. I was not prepared for this.
Yeah, this has never happened before.
Mm-mm.
I remember one of the times we had a Zoom thing. It was like we were having a thunderstorm, and I was worried that I was going to get knocked off because of the tropical storm or something that was coming into Houston, but that didn't happen.
I
I'm
think
really enjoying.
off and then she's probably going to come back on. But while we're waiting, I just wanted to let everybody know that Suzanne is a historian, obviously. She's a journalist. Um, she is an artist. She drew all the covers for her books and all of the illustrations. And she's also on the board. I think she's like a ranger for a park. She's a parks ranger.
She was a in her la 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 la. I saw something, yeah, but I don't think she's does that anymore. It was a
Oh,
was, yeah.
okay. I'm just waiting for her to see if she comes back on again. Let's look at the participants. Hmm.
Yes, and the mural that is behind her as she's been speaking, she did that artwork as well. Very talented artist in a
Do,
whole
do you
bunch of
have
different.
do you have the names of her novels?
Yes, 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 yes. Um, the first novel is called The Goblin Harp, and the second novel is scheduled for release next year called The Coast Watchers. She's planning on telling us where you can get those. Uh,
Good.
I'm just gonna check to see if I can email her. I don't think I have her text, which is not good. Let's see.
if anybody listening has questions, pop them into the comment section, and we can see may not be able to address specifically what any specific things that Suzanne was talking about. If she comes back on, or if you watch this later, look at the photographs closely of these harpists, these street harpists, whatever, and you'll see wrapped, and it's kind of fallen towards the bottom of the harp. You'll see a leather strap, and that's how they would sling it on their back. There's some photographs of Welsh harpers, the triple harps, and you can see the 3 rows of strings, and they have it like strapped horizontally across their back. And those harps were very lightweight, not like our modern folk harps even. They had lighter tension, and the bodies were the sound bodies, the boxes and necks, they weren't as thick. Part of the reason why our necks are so thick on the harp and the columns and stuff is because of the higher tension. But like, look for those leather straps that are used to carry the harps around. I've lost this photograph. I had a photograph in my mother's photo album. She lived in Europe after the war for about 6 months, and she took a picture from behind of a woman playing the harp on the street. It was probably in Italy, and you can see everybody is wearing winter clothes, heavy coats and stuff, and I just can't. And the woman has a heavy winter hat on as she's playing the harp. And I can't imagine how she kept her fingers warm, but it's just interesting that in the 40s, my mother took a picture of a harpist and then had me start the harp when I was 7 years old. So I'm going to make it all about me. No, just kidding. So now somebody says 18th century harps rested on the left shoulder. That can be misleading because if I think it's a lithograph where they carve the design in metal and then it's printed in paper, frequently images, all sorts of images, were done in reverse. And so it might look like the harp player is playing on their left shoulder. But there are harps like the Trinity College harp that you can see in Ireland. You can see the wear marks that show it was played on the left shoulder. But in Europe and in England, harps were usually played on the right shoulder. But Welsh harps, people who play Welsh triple harp today, a lot of them do play still left shoulder. But the triple harps that were in Italy, they were played on the right shoulder because there's lots of paintings from the time period that show them being played on the right shoulder, and they're detailed enough for you to conclude that the artist saw a harp versus somebody describing the harp. Because I don't know about you guys, how often have you gone to look at Christmas cards and seeing harps that are, whether it's from a medieval illustration or a modern one, harps that are not like anyone would play, like the harpist is standing in front of the column playing the harp, which can be done, but it's not typical. Not typical. Please put comments and questions in the chat, folks, if you know how to do that.
I'm having trouble with the chat, but there was an Italian family of harpers in Ottawa in the 19th century, or 1800s.
Yes.
And there was a description of one, carrying the harp around from gig to gig, like on the streets.
Are there any photographs?
No, it was just something that I read about, and there is a museum in Ottawa which still has one of the harp from that family, and there are descendants of the family as well. But what you were just saying about the itinerant Italian harpist, moving around and playing in the street or whatever,
Yeah.
There's a family here that did that.
Yeah, that's neat. That's neat. There's in the 18th century, late 18th century, probably the early 19th century, in Tyrolean harpists, harp levers were not invented at that time, and pedal, things were starting to be invented, but they called them hook harps, and they had holes drilled in the neck, and they had these little metal hooks, and you didn't need to have holes drilled above every string because the most common keys have one sharp, two sharps, maybe one flat, two flats. And they would, if they wanted to play in the, they've been playing in the key of C and they wanted to play in the key of G, they might move the hooks in above the F string and then turn it up. And these harp players in Tyrol would go from pub to play tunes, and they often had kind of like agents that they had to pay a certain amount of money for getting the gigs. And Suzanne, you're back, and I've
Yay,
just been
I'm
babbling.
so sorry, everyone. I was able to hook in on a hotspot on my phone, so oh, I'm so sorry
Okay, so
about that.
no worries, these things happen.
Oh,
Um,
right. I'm going to finish the presentation quickly. We were having Cary Grant as a Christmas angel playing the harp in Hollywood in the 1940s. And the 1957 film White Christmas brings together absolutely every American 20th century Christmas trope and crams it into one extravaganza. Uh, these movies popularized the kind of music that is, oh dear, I'm not having the, sorry everyone, let's do it that way. These kinds of films popularize the kind of music that we hear in the mall today at Christmas, but there's nothing wrong with that really. Even the most ridiculous novelty carols about wanting a hippopotamus for Christmas and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer are still in that family of traditions that go back to the medieval period and that desire to um, bring light and joy and happiness to the darkest time of the year. I think that's important. It doesn't matter if you're playing, busking for pennies at the subway entrance or performing for family or at a concert. Playing the music of the Christmas season connects us to a remarkable and ancient tradition. There's room in it for everyone and a lot of glorious and beautiful music that it's amazing that every year we listen to and sing and play songs that are 500 years old, some of the oldest Western music that is regularly performed and known by a wide section of the population, and that's pretty amazing. So I hope this Christmas you'll go out and strike the harp and join the chorus. It's a tradition and that we are part of, and well, it's remarkable, a beautiful and remarkable thing. And that's the end of my presentation.
well, I have a question for you. Somebody has already asked about this. I told them the title of your books and where can we find your books?
Well, the books are available. You can get them at Melody or Sylvia Woods or many of the harp music stores. You can also get them from Amazon. So they are available out there. But please support your little local music stores, and it's important.
What about the Goblin Harp?
The Goblin Harp is my novel. It came out last year. It is about harps and harpers, and one of the main characters is a harp instructor, so we're kind of the target audience here. It's a young adult novel about a young girl who has always wanted to play the wire-strung Irish harp and is given what turns out to be a very remarkable harp that launches her into an old mystery. There's magic and a mystery to solve. It's set in Maine, very far from where I live in California, but I spent many holidays there as a child, and it's dear to my heart. This has been a passion project of many years, and I'm really excited to have it finally in print.
Where can we purchase it?
Well, I'm afraid this one does come from Amazon. It's available as a paperback or a Kindle book. You can also order it directly from me at westofthemoonbooks.com. So I'm happy to sign copies and write notes in them.
Mary, would you put that westofthemoon.com URL in the chat
I
for
will
us?
do that. Yes, I will.
Westofthemoonbooks.com.
Oh, sorry. So that's why we put it in the chat, because I was going to get it wrong. We do not want that. So,
So
what inspired you to start writing these arrangements and publishing? How were you inspired by that? What was your vision of this?
I'm one of the harpers who came to the harp through books and stories. I grew up with fairy tale books with beautiful illustrations of harps, and I was fascinated by the harp that Thorin Oakenshield brings to Bilbo Baggins' unexpected party. I read a book by Patricia McKillop called The Harpist in the Wind when I was 12, and I wanted a harp more than anything. Fortunately, my parents were sympathetic. Finding a harp back then was not an easy task. I eventually ended up with a 27, I think, string harp made by Tim McCurdy. It had a round back like a concert harp, but no feet, so it wouldn't stay still. Tim was and is a wonderful man, but he's about 6.5 feet tall. And back then, when I was 12 or just turning 13, I was about 5 feet tall. There was no way this was ever going to be a lap harp for me. He showed me how to hold it as a lap harp and gave me a tuning fork and set me adrift. Luckily, I was able to connect with Carmen Dragon. She was my first teacher. I was
Oh,
the first folk harp student, and we learned together how to deal with this contrary instrument that had levers that buzzed and made peculiar noises and didn't exactly sharp the strings. And my dad found a footstool so I could be at the right height. And please, if you have lap harp students, help them to get the harp at the right height. It's very important. If you're trying to juggle a harp in your lap or your arms are up here instead of where they should be, you're not going to have a good experience, and it can actually cause a lot of physical problems. So getting something to rest the harp on that's the right height is just hugely important. But I've always loved the smaller harps. I came to arranging because there wasn't any music for them, and they do have some serious limitations. You're always playing up an octave. You're running out of strings in your left hand. You need to work around those limitations. It's marvelous to be able to take them anywhere. I brought this workhorse out. It's 40 years old at this point, and I've played it in cow pastures and in the rain, and once at a cowboy poetry festival, and another time at the Autry Western Heritage Museum. We performed silent pictures where I'd play the romantic, the scenes for the romances. It's been everywhere and done everything, and you've got to fix it in the field because harps are there's no one to help you when you're out there and your levers come loose and your strings unwind. But I've always loved small harps. I like the portability. I like the voice, and being able to arrange music for them was tremendously helpful. The first piece of music that I arranged, I was studying with Sylvia Woods by then, and she was really helpful because with Carmen was a wonderful teacher, but it was more of a here's the music, learn to play it, here's the technique. It wasn't an opportunity to arrange, and I really wanted to be able to do this. Sylvia gave me those tools, and I brought her a carol that I had loved as a child called Tomorrow Will Be My Dancing Day, and she worked through it with me to arrange it for this harp. Um, and it's in that Green Grows the Holly, my first book. So that led one thing to another, and I've always loved Christmas carols, and especially the older ones are fascinating, the history and the sense of age attached to them.
I find that I think that a lot of people who play smaller, lever harp, whatever size that might be, they enjoy having the creativity to adapt, whether it's a published arrangement or create their own. And when you're playing on a 3 octave harp, yes, there are limitations, but I think it forces you to be more creative because you have to make choices. You can't play everything the way you can on a 5 octave harp. the limitations, I enjoy that creativity myself. Yeah. Does anybody have any question? No, nope, nobody's.
Okay, I'd like to take a moment, if I can, to talk about what I carry around in my harp emergency bag. Okay, because I don't know, we're often forced to, to be our own technicians. And sometimes we have students come in with some very strange harps. There's wonderful harps out there. There's not so wonderful harps. And many a first lesson has been spent wrestling with trying to get something to stay in tune that's not going to. A student who became a very dear friend rented a harp from uh, a wonderful music shop up in Santa Barbara. It was green. This harp was painted green with shamrocks and violets painted on it, and it would stay in tune for about 3.5 seconds. That poor old war horse kind of inspired the harp in here, but trying to deal with that is important. So jeweler's pliers. This is a one for wire snipping. It's a little handier for getting in and snipping the ends of strings. Plumber's Teflon tape. If you've got a pin that is just not, you need to make sure it's a friction pin. And if it's slipping, it probably is a friction pin instead of a threaded pin. A little of this will help to stabilize that pin. Obviously, it will void your warranty, but if you have a warranty, you can contact the harp maker. If it's some weird harp with, no name in it that was built during the 1970s, during that first mad desire to create the new Celtic harp, you're on your own, and this can be a real lifesaver. Different sized harp keys. This is a zither key, which often works on, those little rosewood, inexpensive rosewood harps. This is the one you need for that. Lion and Healy key for almost everything else. This is a micrometer. It will tell you what size strings are. It's really helpful if you don't know, because sometimes, goodness, what diameter is that string? How do you tell? So if it's monofilament, this will tell you what it is, and you can order it from your favorite supplier of strings. A flashlight, because there's probably spiders in there, and if you're reaching your hand, and it's nice to know. And a file, because you never know when you're going to need to file something down. It's just incredibly helpful to have those things with you. And one more thing. We all get a lot of experience tying strings, but sometimes with older harps like this one, the tension of the harp has caused the holes to become a little bit too wide to take a normal string. So I'm a big fan of dusty strings, little harp buttons. And if you have a student who's terrified of tying a knot, these are a great thing, but they're wonderful for harps that won't hold a knot anymore. And what we used to do when I worked at the Harp Center is we'd make little snippets of the bigger strings and tie the harp string around that, and it would hold it in place. But honestly, these are even better. Well worth having in your harp emergency kit. I think a lot of patience is also an important thing to bring to teaching people on smaller harps. You have to think out of the box on them. Sometimes they don't have levers. Sometimes, like this one, has blade levers. Remember those? Yeah, they're not very good. So working around accidentals, sometimes it's easier just to keep the left hand going and reach over to do the levers and toggle them, which might not be very good form, but if it gets you through the piece of music, it's a good thing. Being aware that some of the weirder harps don't always stay in tune, and just finding solutions for that. Unwinding several turns while pushing in firmly and then tuning back up sometimes helps. If not, you've got the plumber's tape. I was taught to use violinist rosin, but this is cleaner and neater and less likely to cause problems if you have to pull the pin out later. What else? I think small harps are very versatile. I agree with Therese that it's, it's fun and exciting, and you can do amazing things. You can fiddle around and play all kinds of things that are not necessarily in the canon for the instrument. There are no limits as far as your creativity to apply to it, but you are limited. And all my books are for harps with 2.5 octaves, although certainly people with bigger harps have enjoyed them. But I don't know, it's a jumping off point. It's something you can use. And as you know, I keep the arrangement simple. I stick to C and G and their relative minors and modes because that's a good range for these small harps where you run out of strings in the bass very quickly. If you're a more advanced harper, you can add your own flourishes to it, but my goal is to be true to the spirit of the music and the sound of the music, to keep it simple so it's available for the biggest possible audience, and to make sure that, the people who play, this one's got 25 strings, that they've got something that they can start with. And there
So we
are
do
some
have a
more. No.
oh, we do have a question about the plumber's tape. What exactly do you do to use the plumber's tape for the slipping pins?
You pop the pin out. Well, pop is you wrestle the pin out by turning it, and so detuning direction and gently but firmly getting that pin out. If you can wrap a little bit around the pin, that's great. Otherwise, you take a little snip off and you stuff it in the hole, and then you put the pin back in, and it should, just the way it helps when you're putting your plumbing back together, it helps with the harp as well, to keep the pin seated. It's not ideal. I've been known to use a mallet. Sometimes don't do that. It's not good for the harp, but sometimes you're desperate, especially if you know, you're on stage, you're in the middle of something, and God, what are you going to do now? You try and work around it, but if you have an interval, having this on hand will prevent you from, having a nervous breakdown, because that B note is determined to be a G note instead.
I have a suggestion about the tuning. I'm talking about the actual physical thing of tuning, um, especially harps that don't have through pins. They only have the zither pins, and you have to tune with your left hand. And I have a few centuries worth of tuning with my right hand, and that it just
Yeah.
messes me up. And so, like, if this is my harp that normally I would tune with my right hand here, I lay the harp horizontal in my lap
Oh, what a good
with
idea.
the sound box like against my body, and my left hand I'm holding say the column of the harp, and my right hand I'm tuning. So I might use my thumb to reach up and pluck a string, and that makes it a lot easier. But I probably wouldn't do that with through pins again, because I mean, yeah, because I'm used to that. But the zither pins, which don't go all the way through, I hold it flat in my lap.
Yeah, the zither pins can be tricky. It can be a challenge. It's easy to strip them, and then you're in trouble with that.
We have a
Yeah.
couple of comments of tips. Uh, a friend used a tiny adjustable wrench to attach to the tuning pin after she had to replace the string during a performance. She could just reach up and turn the wrench to keep the string up to pitch. And then here's,
Oh, that's smart.
yeah, and then a second one, 3 wraps of micropore paper tape will protect a sore or blistered finger. I'm going to have to look into that.
I used to have a dear friend who played the wire strung harp, and he would use airplane glue on his nails, which I don't think is very good for your health, but it was a good fix for that. And he could actually once used it for a cut finger, because you're not just using your nails, you're using your pads too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, we've got a couple more minutes left if anybody has any
I had a question.
questions.
I did.
Yes.
So Suzanne, while you were gone, I was talking about how we talked about you. You're a historian, you're a journalist, you're an artist, and you also were a park ranger at one point.
Oh, no, no, just a naturalist.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, so how what particular talent do you think you have the most allegiance to, and how do you deal with paying attention to one talent and then kind of letting the others go for a while?
It can be a difficult juggling act, and I think for all of us, sometimes we do have to let things go for a while, push them onto the back burner. I can't remember who said it, but there's a famous author who said, whatever it is that you're doing is what you are. And lately I've been a writer because that pays the bills and keeps things rolling along. I'm the editor of a small paper, the Topanga New Times, but the music's always present. I always try to make at least time once a week to play, and I have a 10th book on the back burner. It's been on the back burner for so long that 8 years ago during the Woolsey fire, I left my handwritten notes next to the harps that I couldn't take with me when we evacuated, and it would have all burned up. And I thought, well, now I've got to finish the book. And 8 years later, it's still not done, but it'll get done eventually. So yeah, it just is a question of, you circle back to things. If it's important to you, eventually you circle back to it.
Well, we look forward to that book.
Yes,
Right?
absolutely. Absolutely. Um, I think we're going to wrap it up. Mary, do you have any final thoughts about
Uh,
where people can find this?
where the replay will be?
Yes.
The replay of this will be in your follow-up, but it will also be on folkharp.com. That's the Melodies website. There's a top horizontal menu. One of the items is teachers. And if you hover over teachers, there's Harp Teachers Gathering, and there's a whole page with every Harp Teachers Gathering video that has ever been, except for the one I forgot to record, which was Anna Dunwoody. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was a real honor to be invited to be here and to speak with you today. It's been a pleasure.
It's been
It was,
an honor to hear you and see you, because we don't get a chance to see these people whose names are so famous. And so this was wonderful. Thank you. And Therese, I interrupted you, sorry.
no, I was just going to say thank you, Suzanne, for being a part of our journey and giving us all this great knowledge. And I hope everybody enjoys her books. If you don't have them already, I really strongly suggest you go out and choose a few. And we will see you guys next month, or excuse me, in January.
January.
January. Yeah, we
And
have to take December off. Yeah.
I have Suzanne's books. They're on sale at on the Melody site. If you look at the e-blast that I recently sent out, they're detailed in that e-blast, and you can just click on them and they're on sale. So I think the coupon code is a midwinter snow or something like that. Just read your e-blast and it'll be there. And I'll do a follow-up too.
All right. Thank you and
Thank
goodbye,
you, Suzanne.
everyone.
Thank
Have a
you,
great
everyone.
holiday.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.